In the previous episode, we saw Hwang and Hayan go on a date. However, the date seemed more like a testimony from Hayan. Is she a vampire or not? Did Hwang already know she was a vampire and she tried to hide her identity? He came closer to Hayan and slowly said, "Or are you a person who can't eat things like this?" While Hwang insisted Hayan to eat, he joked, saying, "Is there a Korean who doesn't like kimbap?" "Oh, I guess there could be. If you were a vampire." He then said that only vampires can't eat food items like this, their bodies don't accept it, and they feel excruciating pain. Hayan was shocked, wondering how he knew all this and how he knew she was a vampire. She started thinking, is he going to capture me here? Hayan then ate the food forcefully to clear the doubts in Hwang's mind. She finished her food before Hwang, saying that as she was hungry, she couldn't control herself. Hwang had a shocked look on his face. Later, she threw up in the bathroom, thinking she could have died today or been caught today. She thanked God for saving her, but God had different plans for Hayan. While walking, she prayed to God that she'd never miss Mass again but asked to be saved from these uncomfortable and difficult situations. Wow, we meet again. A voice came from beside her. It was Hwang. Without giving any thought, Hayan said, "I'm never attending Mass again." We can understand Hayan. Then they had a conversation about the food item Hayan was carrying for her cousins. She said goodbye to Hwang in a rush and left. The situation in the town was worse than ever before. People on the ground were taking preventative measures for such incidents that had been happening for the past few days. A group of people were planning to take the situation into their own hands. They were holding knives and giving themselves cuts on their hands. The plan was to give a slight cut to everyone there. And as it was broad daylight, even if they found vampires, they wouldn't be able to use their powers, and they would hand them over to the police. Hayan was confused and scared. Suddenly, a hand grabbed Hayan's hand and took her away. It was Hwang, who was helping her to get away from there. Hayan was confused about what Hwang was planning to do. A group of people stood in front of them as they were trying to leave the place and said, "We want to check Hayan just for safety measures." Hayan softly denied, saying, "Does everyone have to do this?" They became more suspicious and started forcing Hayan to get a cut on her hand so they could check it. A man tried to come forward. However, Hwang held his hand and confronted him, rolled up Hayan's sleeve, and showed her hand. Surprisingly, there was a band-aid applied to her hand. And Hwang confirmed, "See, we already did the process." But the people were not satisfied with that. A man standing there said he needed to confirm with his bare eyes. He tried to grab Hayan's hand but was again saved by Hwang. He held the man's hand and told him, "This is not a hospital, neither are you a doctor." He also showed his ID card, which indicated he was a policeman himself, which humbled the group, and they let them go. At night, when all this was over, Hayan was looking at her phone with a message from Hwang, which said, "Contact me if you're in trouble." Hayan's cousin asked Hayan whether she was texting her boyfriend, to which Hayan denied and told them to sleep as it was late already. Hayan started thinking about Hwang and why he saved her and what his intentions were. To Hayan, Hwang doesn't seem like a bad person. On the other hand, Hwang was standing on his terrace, looking at his phone, saying to himself, "Who would have thought I'd meet you like this, purple blood vampire?" Outside Hayan's house, the gangsters came again in search of the priest. The other guy advised the bald man to let's go and just leave the priest, to which the bald man replied, "Aren't you a real gangster? No turning back." While these two were discussing among each other, a voice came from behind, "Looking for me." While turning back, the gangster said angrily, asking where the fuck you were hiding. Meanwhile, the priest, on the other hand, didn't quite look like a normal priest. Wearing a black suit and a wooden plank in his hand and scars on his face, the priest looked even more gangsta than the two who came looking for him. The gangster men started their ask to sign on the paper as they also said for how long they were waiting for his signature. The priest hit the plank in his hand on the ground and broke it in half, and asked them to settle this somewhere quiet while extinguishing the cigarette on his tongue. Both the gangsters then left the place acting tough, but honestly, they were scared for sure. The other man asked the bald guy, "What's up with the priest?" He said he's not some ordinary priest. He leaves a trail of dead bodies behind him. Inside the house, Hayan was praying to the Lord, and her cousins were confused at her constant praying. Entered the priest, the father. "Welcome home, Father Michael," said Hayan, saluting Father. Father was confused at Hayan's behavior and asked the reason for such an awkward greeting. Hayan said nothing as she was just happy to see Father after so long. She asked Father how his training was. He was a priest of their Catholic church, though he doesn't look like one. He was like a parent to Hayan. Because of him she was able to attend school and college. It seems he knows about Hayan's reality and would be very angry if he knew that Hayan was outside with her vampire side. 2 women came to their house and gave the priest a jar of Japanese apricot wine. He thanked them and was looking at the jar. Heian thought she was safe now as father knows nothing about the recent activities. But father told Heian that we need to talk. Heian knew what was coming. It was you, right? Father asked Heian about the recent incidents in the town. He started lecturing Heian about how she could have been caught that day and what about your cousins. Heian replied that she didn't have any other choice but to do so. Father used to trust Heian, but he couldn't let pass this thing, so Walla and told her that she won't be going to school anymore. Heian got angry at this decision of him and said how can he do this, as she struggled a lot to be here. To which father replied, you don't understand the situation. No matter how hard you train a beast for people, you'll always be a monster. Heian realized it and started thinking about people's words, how they want these vampires to die and how they've created a whole mess for so many years now. Heian doesn't have any memory of her before she was of 10 years. She realized at a moment that father was right. No matter how hard she tries, she'll always be a monster in people's minds. She just wanted to be human again. Outside a club, there were standing people who seemed like vampires. They were talking among themselves about how idiot Nim was, which resulted in his death. The man saying this advised another that there's nothing much to learn, just one thing. Lions get full obedience. Upon asking what were lions, he said lions are a group of 6 leaders who control all the vampires of this city. They're different and have overwhelming power. A man tries to enter the club, but they stop him at the entrance on asking what he wants. He says he wants to see a lion. They were shocked at his response. The men standing at the gate tried to send him away or else it wouldn't result good for him. But he punched both of them and entered the building. Another guy goes inside and asks a man standing at a distance, what should we do now, Nim? The man with golden teeth said send him in with a smile on his face. In a club where loud music played and disco lights flashed from left to right, a few men noticed something in front. 2 vampires fell from the glass wall and landed on the DJ, terrifying the crowd, who started screaming and running towards the exit. The man who sought to meet the lion stood before the vampire, calling out for him amidst the chaos. Clapping sounds came from a distance. Excellent, said the man with golden teeth as he walked towards the other man. Dressed in a unique red suit, he asked how he could assist. The man who defeated the vampire mocked the golden-toothed vampire, likening him to a clown. The man with golden teeth praised him, acknowledging him as the first to speak to him in such a manner. He warned the man that although he might possess power, it would be wasted if he only lived for 5 years. He then offered him a way to extend his lifespan by becoming a lion. It dawned on the man that he recognized him. He was the famous UFC champ Kyukuk. He offered Kyukuk a job, but Kyukuk, taller and more muscular than the man with golden teeth, declined, expressing zero interest in working under someone he considered a punk. The man with golden teeth warned Kyukuk to watch his mouth, reminding him that as a recent vampire, he shouldn't be greedy about his powers. Kyukuk countered, stating he would spare his life only if he handed over his position. Mocked by the golden-toothed man, Kyukuk became enraged and punched him. He relentlessly attacked, vowing to improve his life by becoming a lion and ruling the world. Meanwhile, the golden-toothed vampire defended against Kyukuk's punches effortlessly. Finally, with a mere strike of his finger to Kyukuk's forehead, Kyukuk was shocked and flew several feet away, dying instantly. The golden-toothed vampire appeared immensely powerful, effortlessly defeating a formidable opponent with a single touch. He ordered his men to dispose of Kyukuk's body. Lusai, the golden-toothed vampire, fretted over the bar expenses due to the damages. He regretted his excitement, expecting more from Kyukuk, who turned out to be nothing special. A man rushed to Lusai, whispering something in his ear that excited him. It seemed they had discovered the location of the pureblood and began planning to meet them. In the rain, a group struggled to save a kitten from drowning under a steel cover. Someone noticed money falling nearby, diverting their attention, while Heian used her power to open the steel cover alone. A man observed her, astonished by her strength. Heian received an award for saving the kitten, gaining newspaper attention. Heian's father was furious at her actions, warning her countless times about getting involved in incidents revealing her abilities. Half-bloods, like Heian, sought one thing, pureblood vampire blood to extend their lifespans. Shocked by her father's knowledge, Heian saw a book titled Blood Monsters on his desk, feeling like a monster herself. She fled the room, feeling her father viewed her differently. Meanwhile, as father met people at church, 2 women discussed his past, noting his lack of smiles in 10 years and the scars covering his body, deeming him dangerous. As Lusai Nim approached father, their conversation continued. Father was shocked upon seeing Lusai Nim. Just from his appearance, father figured out that he was completely different from those bastards who were staking out the place outside. People standing in line to meet Father were really confused as Lusai stood in front of them. Lusai told Father that he was looking for someone and hoped he'd let him meet them. Father was worried about the situation as he was in the church and all the members were there. He somehow figured out that he needed to send all the people back to their homes. Patiently, Father told Lusai that he didn't know who he was looking for and they were in the middle of communion. He asked him to come back later. The man standing behind Lusai was angry and gave a pat on Lusai's back, asking him to hurry up. Lusai warned the man not to touch him again. The man grabbed him and turned him around, saying, "Can't you see we're standing in line?" As Lusai turned, the man saw something strange. Lusai's eyes were red, which spoke volumes. The man was terrified as Lusai was about to attack him. Father shouted, "Enough," and asked everyone to return to their homes as they were ending today's mass there. People listened to Father and started moving out of the church. As Lusai was leaving, he left a card which said Red Bomb Club and invited Father to his club for some fun. Later, he said, "Give my regards to Heian." Father was tensed as they now already knew who the pureblood was and his whereabouts. They had been waiting for so long because they wanted the heart of an adult pureblood. While thinking back on his thoughts when he was dispatched abroad, he befriended a kid, and they started sharing things using few words. The kid was very optimistic even in tough situations. But this friendship wasn't for long. There came a day that changed Father's whole life. There was news that terrorists were transporting explosives and were ordered to shoot anyone they found suspicious. There, standing with a bag full of stuff, was the little kid who was Father's friend. Father was in deep shock. Tears were in the little kid's eyes. Soldiers asked him to put his hands up, and Father told the kid to do as they said. 2 bullets and they killed the kid. Soon, they found out that his parents used him as bait and they were carrying explosives. Meanwhile, in his bag, there were just plastic boxes. No one could have imagined what was going on in Father's mind. He was so guilty and felt so helpless that he couldn't even save his little friend. He lost his smile that day. He thought serving God would help him change the situation, but nothing helped. He carried the pain and regret in his heart forever. While he was in his room, news running in the background stated about vampires in the town. On a night of record-high snowfall, he saw a child lying there. He took her to the hospital, but doctors informed him that she didn't have any injuries. When asked if he was her guardian, he denied it. But he saw the same look in her eyes as if she was the little kid who was his lost friend. He brought her home. Soon, he realized that she was not human. But he still kept her. Every time he looked at her, she reminded him of the little kid. The letters he received from the little boy, he tore them up and threw them in the dustbin. The little girl saw it. The next morning when he came back home, he saw that the letters were joined back properly, and there was a letter from the little girl. She thanked Father for keeping her in the house, feeding her, and giving her a warm bed. She thanked him for everything, and below, she wrote sincerely, Park Hayan. The little girl was Heian, but she turned herself in and reached the police station. A policewoman asked Heian, "What's up, kid?" Heian fumbled a bit and said she was a vampire. Initially, the policewoman didn't believe Heian, thinking she was just messing around. Heian insisted she wasn't lying and tried her best to convince them she was a vampire. The policewoman told Heian to shut up and asked about her parents. Left with no choice, Heian decided to show them she was a vampire. She brought her nails out and was just about to tell them to have a good look, but then her father stopped her by grabbing her hand. The father handled the situation very well by laughing it off and apologizing to the policewoman, saying she was bored at home. Back to the present, as Lusai showed up, the father had an idea that now they won't stop soon and will try to reach out for Heian. The father opened the cupboard, filled a bag, and moved out of the house. He took a sneak peek outside, and when he saw no one, he started running outside. A few vampires standing in front of the father stopped him and asked him where he was heading. 4 young vampires were standing in front of the father. Though they were all young, their presence could intimidate even an adult. The father told them to go away for today as only children were there in the house. Suddenly, 2 of the vampires ran quickly towards the house, though Lusai only ordered them to stand by. But they didn't listen. The father shouted, "Please spare the children." But they listened to none. They went straight ahead inside the room, breaking the door, and inside was a trap set by the father. A gas can fell down as soon as both vampires went inside, and a fire was lit, burning down the whole house along with the 2 vampires. "Trap! Trap!" both of them shouted. The other 2 vampires standing in front of the father were angry at this act. One of them went ahead to hit the father, but the father shielded himself with the bag. However, it didn't seem like there were clothes in the bag. The father removed a big fire gun from the bag and aimed at those vampires. They asked the father again about the purple blood and also asked him the reason for the courage for a weak-ass human to face them. The father explained to them that since it was broad daylight, they couldn't use 100% of their power, making it the best time for him to create a scene. The father thought about what morons these vampires were, as they couldn't even notice a simple trap. He was handling the situation really well. He had planned all these things very well. When the father filled the bag, it wasn't clothes, it was all the hidden weapons. The father confronted them by saying, "Having a small handicap should be fine, don't you think?" While father battled vampires alone, Heian and her cousin settled into their new neighborhood. Adjusting to their new home, they longed for a more carefree childhood. Father mentioned he forgot something at the old house and went to retrieve it. Informing Heian and her cousins about the demolition of their former house, father's news left them shocked and saddened, having grown comfortable there over the years. Yet, father reassured them that their new residence would become home, a sentiment they eventually embraced. Observing her room in silence, Heian was asked by father if she liked it. He devoted more time to the children, handling groceries and other chores. The thorn crown Heian possessed was a gift from father, once a reminder of his own past sins, now intended to anchor Heian against losing herself. As Heian and her cousin settled into the new house, they deliberated over dinner plans, eagerly awaiting father's return. Their laughter echoed through the halls as they discussed their favorite dishes, finding solace in each other's company. Meanwhile, father had dispatched 3 vampires, but one had damaged his trusty fire tank, his most reliable weapon. Mocked by a vampire for relying on feeble weaponry, father drew a pistol and fired, each shot precisely. Father, Cho Myung-soo, a former army man, was physically formidable, though reputedly a poor shot. Yet, he consistently struck his targets with deadly accuracy. Continuing to shoot the vampire in the heart, father shared with his foe insights gained from government research on half-blood's weaknesses. Exploiting a weakness he learned from an old friend, father discovered that repeated shots at specific locations hindered a vampire's ability to regenerate. Undeterred by other vampires' advances, father rebuked their arrogance, asserting the fragility of power. He aimed his pistol once more, poised to defend against the encroaching threat. With determination etched on his face, father prepared to face the remaining vampires, his mind sharp and focused. Each encounter with the creatures strengthened his resolve, driving him to protect his family and eradicate the threat posed by the vampire menace. As the battle raged on, he thought of Heian and her cousin, hoping they were safe and unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. Back at the house, Heian and her cousin finished preparing dinner, setting the table with care. Their anticipation grew with each passing minute, longing for the familiar sound of father's footsteps approaching the door. In the warmth of their new home, they found comfort in each other's presence, knowing that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the dimly lit alleyway, father found himself in a fierce confrontation with vampires. With swift and precise movements, he dispatched 3 of them, their lifeless bodies crumpling to the ground. Taking a moment of relief, he surveyed the area, wondering if any adversaries remained lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, Lusai Nim, a formidable vampire with golden teeth, emerged, impressed by father's combat prowess. Acknowledging father's skills, Lusai remarked that even the might of an army would struggle against them. However, Lusai's praise was tinged with frustration as he scolded the defeated vampires for disregarding his warnings to be on standby. He chastised them for underestimating father, a mistake that had cost them dearly. Despite his immunity to fire, Lusai declared his invincibility, claiming that only a furnace could bring about his demise. Undeterred by Lusai's boasting, father attempted to neutralize him with a pistol. Yet, his efforts proved futile as Lusai remained unharmed, visibly annoyed by the damage to his attire. Realizing the need for more potent weaponry, father retrieved a missile-like weapon, prompting a surprised reaction from Lusai. With determination etched on his face, father aimed the weapon at Lusai and fired, expecting it to be the end of the vampire menace. However, to his astonishment, Lusai effortlessly folded the missile as if it were a mere trinket, revealing his unparalleled strength and resilience. As the video ends here, let's see what happens to the priest in the next video. Will Heian come and save the priest, or will the priest handle this Joker vampire himself? Let's find out in the next video. By the way, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.